All right, everybody, peace. Welcome to the Sorry to Bother You Basketball Show. Wherever or however you're listening, we're so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, I'm your host, Cashapp, and listen, it is Game 1 of the WNBA Finals today, and it it will be including one team that may have come by surprise to the average WNBA fan, and it also includes a powerhouse in the New York Liberty. But for the Minnesota Lynx, them making it to the WNBA Finals may come as a surprise to some people. But I'm going to sit here and explain why that's not a surprise, and I'm also going to give you some things I expect to see from this matchup, from this finals, and who I expect to win this finals. So we're going to be talking about all that and then some, guys. But before we get started, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of release content that we post daily. And if you'd like to gain exclusive content from the Sorry to Bother You Show, be sure to follow us on Patreon. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in Sorry to Bother You Show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And that being said, guys, let's go and get right into it, shall we? Like I said, the WNBA Finals will be including the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. Listen, two of the best teams, the two best teams in the WNBA all season. The Minnesota Lynx, in my opinion, have been the most consistent team in the WNBA, led by Nafisa Collier, who up till about 2 weeks left in the regular season was my pick for MVP until A'ja Wilson went on a historic tear over those last couple of games. And the New York Liberty, as you guys know, perhaps the second best team in the WNBA all season. They have the best record, and obviously lost to the Las Vegas Aces in 5 games last year in the WNBA Finals. This year, they played throughout the entire season with that chip on their shoulder, knowing that they were good enough, talented enough to win championship, but came up short. And it's no question about it. You ask the players in that locker room and on that roster, what's the focus, what's the motivation of this season, and all of them have said through and through they want to get back to where they were last year and atone for the mistakes they made in the finals and recapture that glory and win a championship in New York. And their play has proven that. Listen, New York has been one of the best defensive teams in the league all year, specifically on the perimeter. As you guys know, last year perimeter defense was something that New York struggled with last year, and that was something that they was able to shore up this season. And one of the best defensive players on the roster was Benicia Laney Hamilton, who was inserted into the starting lineup this season, and she has been consistently guarding the opposing team's best player, and her ability to catch and shoot off the three and to penetrate and kick, it has proven to be commendable for the Liberty. And inserting her into the lineup, along with Leonie Fibic, has proven wonders for the Liberty. With Fibic and Laney Hamilton in the lineup, now every player in the New York Liberty starting 5 is above 6 feet, except for Sabrina Ionescu, and Sabrina's sitting at 5'11", so she's right there at 6 feet. So it's the size on this team is extremely impressive, and their length is what allows them to be so physically imposing on the defensive end. And obviously their rebounding, led by Jonquil Jones and Breonna Stewart, as well as Niara Sabali. Listen, they have amazing size, and all their bigs move well. They have amazing footwork. They have quick feet. So even if they do have to switch on the ball screen, it doesn't create a mismatch because, like I said, their bigs for Liberty are quick-footed and they move well laterally. So they're still able to contest those shots, even if they do end up switching. But something that the Liberty do a great job of is the guards, at least, they don't allow themselves to get screened, to get picked on the screen. So that means they get skinny, they jump up into the offensive player, so it creates a smaller target for that screen, and it makes it harder for the offensive player to screen that defender. And the guards do a great job of that on the Liberty. And obviously defensively is what the defensive prowess of the Liberty is what's set them apart throughout the entirety of the season, and it showed against the Aces in the previous round. And it's interesting to speak about all these things because everything I just talked about with the Liberty and what makes them special in terms of their defense and their physicality, rebounding, is also what has set Minnesota apart throughout the entirety of this season. And, like I led off the show with, Navisa Collier was my MVP, my pick for MVP, up until about 2 weeks left in the season. Until A'ja Wilson, like I said, went on that historic tear. But listen, Nafisa Collier, you can argue, is a top 3, top 4 defender in the WNBA. And it's part of the reason why she was my pick for MVP up until about 2 weeks left in the season. And, at 6'1" and being able to move the way she does, Collier is, you could argue, is a point forward. And the way that she's able to defend 1 through 4 and have quick hands and get into the passing lanes and be able to guard quicker guards and still contest, while also still being able to be a force on the boards is phenomenal. She's able to do all these things defensively while still being extremely efficient on the offense. And listen, when we saw what happened, she just dropped 48 in game 3, I believe it was, or game 2, in the semifinals against Connecticut. And not only is she shooting and scoring efficiently, Collier is, but she's also doing it within the flow of the offense. It never feels like the ball sticks when it's in her hand. She's scoring off of cuts, she's scoring off of pin downs, she's scoring off of touches on the low block, she's scoring off of touches in the mid post, she's scoring off the catch and shoot, she's scoring in transition with and without the ball, running the lanes, attacking early. She's doing all of these things, and because she's doing it efficiently and the ball's not sticking in her hand, it's allowing her teammates to get easy and efficient shots as well. Players like Natisha Heidemann and Kayla McBride and Alana Smith and Courtney Williams especially, and Bridget Carlton as well, players who on previous teams were sometimes seen as afterthoughts and seen as marginal WNBA players, are now standouts and key cogs in this machine in Minnesota. For example, Courtney Williams, when she was in Connecticut, people were uncertain if she could play the point guard position. People saw her as someone who could only shoot the ball. She couldn't dribble. But she gets to Minnesota and she transitions to that point guard role, and now she's doing it phenomenally. And I remember just starting out the season, I had some cause for concern as well, because I said that Minnesota didn't have a pure point guard, but Courtney Williams is clearly turning into that pure point guard that Minnesota needed. And she's controlling pace and tempo. She's getting into the paint. She's attacking off ball screens, looking not just to score or facilitate, not looking for one particular thing, but looking to just create pressure and looking to put pressure on the defense and just making reads from there. I can't tell you how many times Courtney Williams was on the secondary break 4 and 5 and came off a drag screen from Nafisa Collier, and it led to either a quick dump down, a quick slip pass to Collier, or it led to a pull up, or it led to a kick out to the 3. Courtney Williams is doing a great job of running that point guard position, and once again, it's leading to easier shots, specifically off the catch, for players like Carlton, who is shooting a career high from the field this year, and Kayla McBride, who has had a phenomenal season. She led the league in 3-point field goal percentage and 3-point shooting. And, Kayla McBride is a player who out of Notre Dame was always a great shooter, but was at times in her career perhaps inconsistent. But this year, she's getting easy looks, the easiest looks she's gotten throughout her career. And obviously, she's someone who can put the ball on the floor as well and get into her 2-dribble pull-up, also get to the paint into her floater. Not to mention an amazing defender as well. With Minnesota, all of these players are bought into the system, are bought into the culture that's being developed. And that's a telltale sign that, this is a team that will be a force to be reckoned with, not just this season, but years to come, so long as it's led by, or as long as its leaders and its primary players are bought into the culture and bought into the system. And it seems to me that Collier is bought into the system, and this team is going to go as Nafisa Collier goes, not just in the future, but also in this WNBA Finals. And I know a lot of people are picking the liberty to win this WNBA Finals and to perhaps sweep Minnesota, but Minnesota is too good of a team to be swept. And because these teams play so well similarly, and people look at the rosters and they'll say, well, New York has far more talent than Minnesota, of course they're going to win. We could have said the same thing about Connecticut. Connecticut had far more talent than Minnesota on paper, obviously led by Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner and Dejanay Carrington and Marina Mabry. There's far more talent on paper, like I said, on that Connecticut roster than Minnesota's. However, Minnesota plays well as a team, as a unit, and the ball moves, it's fluid. If you want to think of a comparison for this Minnesota Lynx team, think about the San Antonio Spurs during the Kawhi, Tim Duncan, Manu, and Tony Parker era Spurs. That's what this reminds me of. That's what this Minnesota Lynx team reminds me of in terms of their cohesiveness and the way the ball moves and their ability to be locked in and bought in defensively 1 through 5 and 6 through 8, or however deep they decide to go on the bench. If there is a cause for concern for me, that is the one cause for concern for me for Minnesota, is their depth on the bench. They don't go very deep. They go 3 deep sometimes, but normally it's about 7, sometimes about 7 or 8 between there. And that's the only cause for concern for me. But size is not an issue or not a cause for concern for me. Scoring is not a cause for concern for me. So I believe this is going to be a very tight series. I believe this series will go 5 games. It will go 5 games, absolutely. Even with New York having home court advantage, I do believe this series will go 5 games. And I have Minnesota winning this series. I have Minnesota winning this series in 5 games. And it will be highly contested, and it will be a physical battle. And don't expect this series to be a high-scoring series. Expect it to be physical, extremely defensive. But these teams play so similarly. I mean, they're twin mirrors of each other. It's incredible. But the biggest key for each of these teams, for Minnesota, is going to be how much help can they get off the bench? How much help can they get off the bench? And for the Liberty, one of the biggest keys for them is how efficient can Courtney Vandersloot be? Vandersloot is someone who has embraced her role in coming off the bench, but how efficient can she be running with that second unit? If Vandersloot can be efficient running with that second unit, obviously is going to allow New York to create separation during those switches, and is going to allow time for the starters to get more rest as well, specifically Sabrina Ionescu and Lainey Hamilton. But that's going to be the biggest factors for each of those teams. And like I said, I have Minnesota winning the series in 5 games, and I see Collier averaging over 27 in this series, but I do see it being a physical series and a highly defensive series. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Leave your thoughts in the chat room. Let me know what you guys think about this series. Who do you guys think is going to win? Do you guys have Minnesota, or do you guys have the Liberty winning this series? And in how many games and why? Leave your thoughts in the chat room. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. But with that being said, guys, that is it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again, guys, same time tomorrow with our NFL show as well as our college football show for the Heisman watch list. Until then, guys, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions.